Good morning, Starshines. My name is DH, my pronouns are they, them, and I play cozy games. And I knit and crochet and do a bit of bullet journaling, and some other stuff too. Every Monday evening on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/thecozydh, is our weekly crafty chat. Bring your project, bring something to stay hydrated with, but most importantly, just bring yourself. Each week, I'll post highlights from the stream, any tips I give, or just show off what I'm working on. To see more and join the conversation, follow me on Twitch to know when Crafty Chat goes live, and then join us. I can't wait to see ya. Welcome, welcome. It is Monday Night Crafty Chat. We are doing this setup with the camera over here. Hello. Because it's way more comfortable for me to sit this way. I was kind of self-conscious about it because of my round tummy. I am, as you can tell, a large fat man. But I don't know. I didn't care as much today for some reason. I mean, I know just from my hand you can tell that I'm overweight, so I don't know what I was trying to hide by not having any of my body on camera. And I'm sure I've shared pictures of myself in the Discord as well, so. But I wanted to hang out with you guys. That was the most important thing. And it didn't really matter, and I would rather be comfortable and able to chat with you and work on my project than the other way that I do the top down. I sit forward on the edge of this armchair and it gets quite uncomfortable after 15 minutes or so. So I have to, I'll often stop talking and shift around and that kind of thing. But now I can just sit and chill and chat with you. You might even occasionally see a cat because you can see some empty floor over here. Yeah, I have my regular neurodivergence of drinks here with me. I have a nice hot cup of coffee, a cherry Coke, no Diet Pepsis today, and an iced tea. So that's lovely. And I'm ready to do some knitting, some whips. Today, as I talk, I'm going to be knitting. I've talked before about how difficult it is to find knitting content on Twitch. Like, not crafting content. Crafting content, there's lots of it. There's people doing miniatures and crochet and cross stitch. But knitting, I find, is very rare. Whenever I have some free time and I just want to find someone to watch knit, I struggle. So we're gonna knit tonight. I'm working on these. They are knee-high socks, or they're going to be. I'm working them 2 at a time. As you can see, I started top down, so that's why they've got this bit of shaping on the back. Because obviously for knee-highs, you have to adjust for the calf. So they've got kind of this sloped shaping there. I've finished the shaping. I'm on to just kind of the straight portion of the leg now. I've got about 9.5 inches done, and I'd like to get them to 14 and then have Toot try them on. 14 should do it before I do the heel. So these are my Halloween socks because they're knee highs and they're Halloween socks. This is Hobby Halloween sock yarn, which came out a couple years ago now, and I immediately had to get my hands on some, of course. I managed to get 3 balls. The one of the colors that I really wanted was sold out. It was called Vampire Kisses. And I really wanted them. You no longer want them after that pun. No, but they're Halloween socks. It's such a good pun. So this is colorway 2, which is Creepy Socks. And I've made socks in the past from Mean Socks and Scary Socks. You don't want them twice now? Oh no. Oh no, no, no. Oh no. I will continue making them and hope Toot changes her mind. So I'm just doing straight vanilla. And for socks, vanilla just means no patterning. Just stockinette all the way down. Everyone has their own way of doing vanilla socks. I usually do, for myself, I'll do top down, heel flap, and gusset. Toot prefers, or what fits her better, is a short row heel. So I'll do a short row heel and toe up or top down. Depends on the pattern. For these, I decided to do top down just because I find it easier to get top down socks started. And I also knew that the longest slog would be that top section, which is true because these were supposed to be for Halloween last year. And we bought the yarn the Halloween the year before. So, top down. For the first 6 inches, I did shaping to get it down to 64 stitches, which is pretty standard for a sock. I'm using 2.25 millimeter needles, a 32 inch, I believe, cord, and these are just the Knit Basics, which I think is like the really cheap arm of the Knitter's Pride Knit Picks brand. These needles were $3 from Hobby, and they are the best sock needles I've ever used. I have Chowgoos, and I prefer these. So I decreased down to 64 stitches in the round, and now I'm just knitting around until I get to the heel. I'll do a pretty standard short row heel. I'm not doing a shadow wrap heel or Fleagle or Fish Lips Kiss, anything like that. Just bog standard short row heel. And then about 5.5 inches of foot. And then I'll do a toe. Foot and toe are going to be in black Patton's Croy in the colorway Coal. So that's a little bit of extra durability on the heel with the Patton's Croy, because as I've said before, there will be 2 things left after the end of the world, and that will be the cockroaches and Patton's Croy. The sock yarn is indestructible. Also, it is self-striping, so I don't have to do any work to get this lovely patterning. I did have to do a little bit of work when I was getting the sock set up because I wanted the stripes to match. For myself, I like mismatching stripes, but Toot prefers matching stripes, so that just means winding off the cake into 2 skeins, and then making sure that each skein starts at the same point in the striping pattern. So it's a little bit more work on the front end, but if you get it set up right, you don't have to do any thinking after that. And doing them 2 at a time like this, if for some reason the patterning does go off, like there's a knot in a skein or something, I'm really easily able to catch that they're not exactly the same, because each row should be identical as I'm working it. And also 2 at a time is great because then I won't have to make a second sock when I'm finished. I'm just finished. So I actually have this in a project bag. Usually my active project is just in a drawer. But because there's 2 balls of yarn, I wanted to keep it kind of compact. So I do mine in actual balls. I only have 100-gram skein of the Halloween sock wool, but the skein does run long. So there's more yarn in it than there is in a typical sock yarn skein. And usually I only use about 40 to 50 grams for a pair of regular socks. So I'm hoping that I can get a decent foot length out of 1 ball for 2 knee highs. And then I'll just, if I have to start the black for the toe a little bit sooner, I'll do that. Because at this point this yarn is discontinued and there's no way to get more. So this is my project bag. I actually sewed this myself many moons ago. I'm not a sewist. This is about as good as it'll ever get. Very simple bag. So, whip management. I've been talking the last few days, last little bit, about feeling overwhelmed by my whip list, which doesn't happen to me a lot. It's actually not as many. I mean, I started the year with 23, which is a lot. I currently have 11 whips. And of course, I started something else last night, but let's not talk about that. Actually, we will talk about it because I pulled it out to show you guys because it's very pretty. But I started something else last night. But I was starting to get anxious about it. And I always say my stance on whips and stash is there's no such thing as too large until it makes you start to feel anxious and stressed. And at that point, it's too large for you. And you should probably figure out a way to manage that. So I've been feeling like unsettled about my number of whips and not knowing what to work on and feeling decision paralysis, all that good neurodivergent stuff. And then today, Uncle Martyn, he has a YouTube channel, Knit365. And it's a video blog style knitting channel. There are 4 YouTube channels that I watch religiously, as in as soon as they post a video I watch it, and he's like probably number 1 on that list. But he is also a chronic whip haver. And I'm always reassured because usually he has more whips going on than I do. And even now that's true. His last accounting was 13 and I'm at 11, so I'm still less than him. So he posted his monthly roundup, which at the end of every month, beginning of the next month, he does like a little roundup of what he finished, what he started, what he was working on, any new stash acquisitions, that kind of thing. It's really fun. And he was talking about feeling overwhelmed with his whips, which so am I. So it was a very well-timed post or video. And what he was found, so what was recommended to him by, he's good friends with the owner of his local yarn store, and I believe it was her or someone at their knit night who recommended to him a blog post from Wool and Honey, which is a designer/yarn dyer company, about something called the Gideon Method. And I was like, oh, I love me a good method. So he talked a little bit about that, and he's going to be trying to do that. So I read his blog post about it, and then I read the Wool and Honey blog post about it, which was difficult. I don't know who they think their blog is aimed at, but the text is like 8-point text in light gray on a white background. I had to magnify and enhance. It was bad. I was like, I can't read this. But I did read the blog post. It was quite interesting. So basically, Wool and Honey's, the people who work there, at their knit night, there was a woman whose last name was Gideon, and when she had been feeling overwhelmed with her whips when she was in a needlepoint group back in the 90s, so this has been going around since the 90s, but like on a more IRL needlepoint level. So she had this method for busting out whips that she used, and Wool and Honey adopted it and called it the Gideon Method, and then I think online it started to be called the Gideon Method from there, even though this woman is not the one who invented it. It's just she's the one who brought it to their attention. Anyways, so the scheme is you pick 5 whips, no more no less, 5 whips. So this is for people who have more than 5 whips. And they should be like deep whips, like things that you've had that have been stewing for a while, that have been weighing on you for a while. And you commit to working on one of them for 12 hours. No more, no less. 12 hours. And then when you finish the 12 hours, or you finish the project, whichever comes first, you switch to the next thing on the list. And you don't go back to the first thing on the list until you do the other 4 things on the list. So you like rotate through them. Which, I like that. I like that. Toot has had a similar rotation when she was crocheting, which works really well for her. And it did work well for me when I did it. Because Toot, of course, is like, you just need to rotate your whips. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay, that's a great idea. And then I would do it for like 3 days, and then I'd be done. So, I don't know. I'm stressed about my whips. I think I might give this a shot. Because I like the idea. Because it's a good enough chunk of time that you can get a bunch done. But it's not so long that you start getting really antsy and you just don't want to work on anything. Because it isn't like 12 hours of real time. It's not like, from 12 a.m. to 12 p.m. that's your window to knit on that. If you don't knit on it, you move to the next thing anyways. It's like 12 hours of knitting time, which varies for some people. Some people that's a couple of days, some people that's a couple of weeks, some people that's a couple of months, and that's fine. So I think I'm going to try this and get a couple of things off my list because they are starting to stress me out. I actually frogged a couple of things that I was just not happy with and I didn't want to continue working on. I finished something, which is good. And then I started something last night, which is okay. So the first project up is these socks. And I decided for myself that 12 hours is a little bit too long. I don't think, knowing myself, I don't think I can focus for 12 hours. But 6 hours felt too short. I'm just untwisting my socks right now. 6 hours felt too short. Like you wanna get a good chunk done on your project. So I settled on 9 hours. I'm gonna do 9 hours on each project. And then switch. So 9 hours should get me well into the foot of these socks. Of course, if I get to like the heel of the socks at 8 hours and 59 minutes, I think I'm just going to finish them. So I'm already bending the rules, but the framework is what matters here. And I'm not going to be like timing myself with a stopwatch. I don't think that's going to work. But just in general, like I did 15 minutes before, and I'll just track it in little 15-minute bursts. And then the idea being that as you finish things and they fall off your list of 5, you add something in until you've worked through everything or cast on new stuff in its place. So hopefully this will be a work through everything. I got down to 1 whip. There was a point a couple years ago when I had a single whip on the needles. Those were the days, right? Yeah, I don't see these socks. I don't know, part of me says I'll be able to get the socks done in 9 hours of dedicated knitting. But, so, for Sock Madness, which is a sock knitting competition, which goes on every year, usually the winning socks are made, there's a pair of socks done in about 18 hours. But that's like 18 real-time hours, that's not 18 hours of sitting down and knitting time, that's a person with a life, supposedly. And also they're very complicated socks, whereas these are just straight vanilla. I recommend that if you do knit socks, that you discover what your vanilla pattern is and what fits you and what style you like, and that way, and write it down somewhere so you can just go back to it. Because for a while, the first couple pairs of socks I made were too big for me. And then the next pair of socks I made didn't fit right. So I've figured out now the formula. Heel flap and gusset definitely works better for me because I have like higher arches. And that just gives you more fabric around the arch part of the foot in comparison to a short row heel. So the vintage socks that I just made, those had a short row, those had a heel flap and gusset, but it was a very shallow gusset. It wasn't enough there wasn't enough extra fabric for my arches. So the socks are a little bit loose in the foot and loose in the leg, but really tight in the heel arch area. So they're staying up well, and once I'm wearing them, they're pretty comfy. It's just getting them on is a bit of a fight over the heel area. Knitting stockinette is like mining in a straight line sometimes. And I am at the point where I could do this with my eyes closed if I had to. It slides in the mention of mining in a straight line. Sorry. But yeah, it's very, very repetitive. I could do this with my eyes closed, just being able to feel where the stitches are on the needle and the muscle memory at this point. I think I have actually knit, well, almost asleep. And I have knit in movies and on the bus. And every now and then, even with stockinette, you just have to take a moment every now and then to just admire your work because it looks so good. So the 5 projects that I put on my Gideon Method list that I'm going to work through and hopefully finish. The first is this pair of socks. The second is the cross stitch that I just started, the Northern Lights, which I can show you guys that. So this is the cross stitch I just started. It's a deer standing in front of the Aurora Borealis. At least it will be. It's super pretty. I'm trying out the parking method, which you can kind of see here, but basically I worked a 10 by 10 square in its entirety, and then another one, and then another one, and then when you're finished with the color in that square, you find where it appears next in the chart, and then you park it there. So when you come to that point when you do the next block, you can pick up and continue working the blocks. So this is a method. What I usually do is called cross country, where I would do all of one stitch, all of one color, in rows. So going cross and doing all of the colors in that stitch in one row, and then the next row, and the next row, and the next row, and the next row. Whereas this is, you do an entire 10 by 10 at once. So this method is often suggested for full coverage pieces, which means when this is finished, there's going to be you're not going to see the Ada at all. Every space has a stitch. So I figured try something new, try a new technique. So there's that. So this is gonna be one of the projects. The snake and lavender wreath is going to be one of the projects because I would like to get that finished. I'm going with the muscle burrow hat that I have all on the needles as one, and I think I should be able to get that done in a 9-hour chunk. I think so, which will be nice. It'll be a quick win. And then the 5th thing is the Triceratops hoodie. So those are the 5 projects I'm going to start out with working on in this 9-hour block system, which does feel a lot more manageable because I'm only dealing with 5 of my whips at any given time. I don't have to worry like, oh my god, there's so many things on the needles. No, I'm just dealing with 5. It's a good idea if you knit for other people to just keep their measurements on hand, or like ask them one time, can I take a set of very specific measurements of you or of your favorite shirt, and then just hold on to them for the next time that you want to make them something, and that way you don't have to get measurements all over again. But that only works if their measurements aren't changing. And also, I don't knit for other people other than Toot, so that's why I only have one set of measurements in my book. I don't even have my own measurements in my book. I measured my favorite hoodie, and I just make everything that size. Ease, don't know her. It's all hoodie sized. The great thing about a knitted garment is that you can make it very customized to your comfort. Not just to your body, but to what you find comfortable. Like, I know the measurement around my upper arm, but I also know that I like my sleeves to be looser than that. If they're too tight, I don't like them. I like sleeves that have a lot of positive ease and then cinch in at the wrist to get that little like slightly poofy look. That's my favorite kind of sleeve. Whereas Toot prefers a very tight sleeve. I always do Toot sleeves with negative ease. I do Toot's entire garment with negative ease because she likes that fit. Whereas for myself, I prefer a lot of positive ease. So that's the kind of thing to keep. So it's always good to not just have someone's measurements, but to have the measurements of a piece of clothing that they like. And you can just lay that out and measure the actual fabric itself. And that way you're getting a fit that they like as well. Like I said, I decreased for the back of the calf down to 64 stitches around, which is a standard sock, standard medium size sock. Some people do larger, some people do smaller. That's what I meant. That's what I was saying about figuring out what works for you and your foot, or your loved one's feet, if you are knitting for other people. Strangely, I found that 64 stitches also work for my leg. I don't know if I just like more negative ease on my shins than in other places, but I also do a 64 stitch sock for myself. I as well, but my foot is much longer. So for Toot, I'll do a from the back of the heel, I'll do 5.5 inches, and then I'll do the toe, which will get that's a good foot length for her. Whereas for myself, I do 8 inches from the back of the toe, from either the start of the toe or the back of the heel, depending on if I'm doing toe up or toe down. It's funny because I call myself the king of unsustainable number of whips. The king of far too many whips. And yet, here I sit, 11 whips in, feeling overwhelmed. No, that's a lie. I have 12 whips. I started something 2 days ago and I haven't made a note of it anywhere, but I need to count it as a whip if I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be honest with myself. I have 12 whips. I couldn't resist. I can never resist. This is why I need a system. This is why I need some discipline. Toot, has discipline. I do not have discipline. I'm all over the map. But I started the boat-side hooded muscle tee, which has been on my radar since it was first released a few weeks ago. And it's a hooded muscle tee in cotton. It's loose, it's light. I'm hoping it will be a summertime alternative to the Dysphoria hoodie. Maybe I'll put that on my list instead of the Triceratops hoodie. And hopefully I'll be able to wear it while it's still warm. Yeah, I was basing that 11 number on my whip list, but I haven't started a project page for the hooded muscle tee. I've been lying to myself about starting too many whips. It's getting that bad. But I am using my cotton 8/8, rainbow cotton 8/8 stash, which is a worsted weight, very soft cotton yarn. So it should work up very quick, and there's no sleeves, so that's good. And I'll be doing it in stripes because I don't have enough of any one color to do the full thing. So I'm just going to be doing some random bright stripes. You know me. It's going to look weird. My color choices so far are making it look a little Harley Quinn. But I've got some like bright pinks and yellows, and greens and things to come up. So I'm hoping that doesn't stay. So this is what I have so far. So it's got a split hem, which means there's like that little slit up the side. So I did, which you accomplish by basically working two pieces separately and then joining them in the round. So I did the two pieces in two different colors. So like this will be the front and this will be the back, or this will be the back and this will be the front. I haven't decided yet. And that's the split hem. And then just moving into this beige stripe. I have this very deflated little skein of the beige. So I'm just going to knit until this runs out and then switch to another color and knit until that runs out. So the stripes are going to be different widths depending on how much yarn. But I want it to be comfy cozy. And I also want to use up this yarn. It's so soft. Like every time I pull it out, I'm just touching it. It's so soft. But the color palette is very Harley Quinn at the moment. That's all I can think of. Well, 12 still puts me under Martyn, so that's fine. Everything's fine. It'll all get done. Why do I do this to myself? Alright, I know why I do this to myself. I am the lonely Wizbot and I require stimulation. I'm a menace to myself. I also tend to use casting on new projects as a coping mechanism, which is not great. But whenever I'm feeling sad or depressed or upset, I start new projects. Which is how I've ended up with a lot of new projects in the last year. And then when I start feeling better, I start finishing all the projects. But then I never finish them fast enough. Because when I start feeling better, I'm also feeling happy, so I want to start new happy projects. It's a vicious cycle. So I made a little tracker for this in my crafting log. I also had to make new indexes in my crafting log because I filled up the other one. So I just did a thread, which is when you do a little arrow at the bottom of the page pointing like to the side with the number of the next page where that information is stored. Except I realized that I haven't been numbering my pages for like the last 30 or 40 pages. So I need to go back and do that. And then update all my indexes. The indexes are very helpful. And if you keep up with them, it's not a lot of work. It's just that I never keep up with them, and then I have to spend like 15 minutes indexing. So this week on the channel, the stream channel, the channel in the community, so today was Crafty Chat. Hello, welcome to Crafty Chat. Wednesday, we're going to be playing more Beacon Pines. We're going to get started at 5. So I'm trying this week to just start all of my streams at 5 right across the board instead of having to remember when things go live and starting and 5 across the board. I just yanked my stitches off my needle. That's it for the video. If you like the content, please like the video. Subscribe for more cozy gaming and crafting highlights. If you want to see more, join the community on twitch.tv/thecozydh or check out our Discord. Thanks for watching, and keep twinkling below, Starshine.